You're looking at some of the many scenes, just some of the many scenes. Parts of Los Angeles were a mess over the weekend. You've got immigration raids setting off 3 days of often violent protests that escalated into riots. So good morning, everybody. On a Monday, we'll see where we are now. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Back into the week we go. I'm Bill Henry live in New York. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. It feels like there's sort of friction happening everywhere, especially in Los Angeles. They are reeling from day 3 of chaos. Anti-ICE agitators fighting with police, some of them waving foreign flags. And we've seen people hurling rocks and bottles at police cars, some even smashing windows at the LAPD headquarters.
So, Dana, the rioters are also torching driverless taxis that are in use in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, police forced to shut down the 101 freeway after protesters ground traffic to a halt.
The whole Democrat plan
thousands of national
is to let
troops
the prisoners
federal response
run their asylum. Let the prisoners run the prison. That's the Democrats' plan.
We see danger to our country.
Thinking they're going to stay in power.
And we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order. It's about law and order.
Got a new chief in town.
We're going to see what we need. We'll send whatever we need to make sure there's law and order.
So now Team Fox coverage. Kayleigh McEnany has analysis. Rich Edson reports at the White House, first to L.A. on the ground. Jonathan Hunt leads our coverage on this Monday. Jonathan, where are we now?
Let me bring you over here, Bill.
Good morning to you, Bill. We are still in what is a very tense situation in downtown Los Angeles. You can see one of dozens of police roadblocks that have been set up in the area behind me here. That is because we are right outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. That is where the protesters believe some of the immigrants caught up in the raids over the last few days are still being held. And let me bring you over here, Bill. This is the 101 freeway you were just mentioning. And this is the exact spot that was shut down in both directions yesterday when thousands of protesters showed up in downtown LA.
That's why they could both be empathetic and sympathetic to your needs and wants and play on your emotions. But yet your city is always full of crime, and they never solve it and fix it. Democrat mayors and Democrat governors, what they all have in common is when you have that combination of blue and blue,
rubber bullets. It has been a
bad schools, high crime,
of them made their way onto this freeway. That is where we also saw several California Highway Patrol vehicles set on fire by the protesters.
Don't go in, don't make me look bad.
Battle with law enforcement.
Wait till Big Red Man comes in with the National Guard, and we're going to make them look bad.
Rubber bullets. It has been a very intense
the core issue. Don't lose sight what it is. These people are not just people being deported because they're here illegally. They had committed a crime here. This is who ICE is targeting. Yes, some of them have children. Okay, so what? You and your kids can go back home with all that criminal bullshit. But Democrats are like, whoa, you increase our census. You help us get more electoral votes. You know,
they have a hammer and they'll break
the cinder block. We're going to give you EBT cards. You know,
there's no.
What else are Democrats doing for illegals?
What they're doing.
Definitely skips around getting jobs. You're definitely giving Social Security numbers, and you're giving them work visas.
During the height of
you're definitely against voter ID because you want them. They have been voting.
Pretty unequivocally,
you know,
all acts of violence, but at the same time,
it's crazy how you can have people who don't even live in this country
was to some extent sparked
for things
the presence of the National
Guard as the mayor. Don't even elect their representatives. Democrat Party don't even have runoffs. They just choose somebody. They don't even let the people choose who they're gonna you know, they don't have no debates with each other.
It's the last thing our city
needs. Man, this is crazy. Look, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe.
Going back to the
You're on the ground with Political Decode. I'm your host, Johnny Caruso. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. Bada boom, bada bing.
When this all began to unfold, and as we showed our viewers and I watched the live pictures coming in, it struck me, where is the LAPD? They were certainly slow to deploy. Now, the police chief said in that news conference they had to get organized, but at the same time, he also said they do not want law enforcement to be politicized, and he seemed to be at pains in that press conference to say the LAPD is no part of the ICE actions. So it seems fair to question, as many at the White House have, whether the LAPD was slow to get involved